Eastern Airlines is definitely America's weirdest airline. They only operate one round-trip flight a month from Miami to Santo Domingo, which I've managed to chase down. I hope you will join me in figuring out just what this airline is all about. When I say Eastern Airlines, I'm sure most of you think of the original Eastern that dominated the East Coast market for decades, started the first shuttle service, and introduced the A300 to the United States. Sadly, this airline died in 1991, so I'm not flying it today, no matter how much I wish I was. There was also a small charter airline that started up in 2015 that had bought the Eastern brand, but they only lasted until 2017. This is when the Eastern we are flying today got the name, but I'll explain that later. Welcome to Santo Domingo. I just arrived here earlier this morning aboard Aeromexico, which my last review featured in case you want to check that out. Now it's time to check in for a flight to Miami, which is Eastern's hub. I arrived at the airport just before check-in opened, with no idea what to expect since I only learned about this airline a month or two ago. Despite the lack of any signage, finding the check-in desk was easy thanks to a check-in board, although the lack of a logo was a little funny. Check-in was super fast, since I was the only one in line. This seemed a bit odd since it was only 2 hours till boarding and check-in had just opened, but maybe everyone is just ignoring the recommendation to arrive 2 hours early. Santo Domingo's airport is relatively small, with just 10 gates, which are split between the A and B concourse, with B concourse actually being equipped to handle aircraft like the 747. Since our gate is in the B concourse, I decided to check out the A gates first. While we walk, let's talk a little more about how this airline came to be. Eastern began in 2010 as Dynamic Airways. They started off as a charter and leasing operator, but slowly transitioned into a regularly scheduled passenger airline offering services to various South American and Caribbean destinations, with an all-767 fleet. This didn't last long though, and the airline shifted back to charter operations, and then filed for Chapter 11 in 2017. This is when they bought the rights to the Eastern brand. They later relaunched their network of secondary South American routes as the new Eastern Airlines we are flying today in January 2020, just as COVID started. Despite the A-gates being the older part of the airport, it still has a very modern feel thanks to recent renovations, with nice open walkways and plenty of natural lighting. Well, time to get headed to our gate. Concourse B doesn't really hold up to A, with much smaller hallways and glazed over windows making everything feel more cramped. This isn't helped by the crowds completely choking the hallways during boarding. With boarding approaching, I'm starting to get nervous because there's no sign of our flight anywhere. Nothing on info boards, no announcements, and our gate has clearly changed. Thankfully, while filming our plane off in the distance, I was spotted by a fellow aviation nerd who realized we were both hunting down this flight, and he directed me to our new gate. The rest of the passengers ended up being manually rounded up by gate agents roaming around calling out names. This is when I realized there were only 9 other passengers for a plane that can seat more than 250. Once everyone was collected, we boarded a bus and started the long but very cool drive to our plane. This airport is actually very busy for its size, so I got to see quite the diverse set of aircraft. First off, United, JetBlue, Delta, and American all fly here from their East Coast hubs. Aerojet, the Dominican Republic's largest carrier, of course operates a hub here, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I had caught Iberia's A330 taxiing in the background. I also got a wonderful look at 2 old 737-400s from Venezuelan carriers Tuperal and Avior. Panama's flag carrier Copa also flies here. Along with Iberia, fellow European carriers Air Caribbees, Air Europa, and Condor all make regular stops here, although I didn't see them here today. As we approached our aircraft, I also got a close look at Dominican carriers Sky Cana and Sky High. Well, here we are. This is November 706 Kilo Whiskey, a 34-year-old 767-300. This aircraft started its life with British Airways in 1990 before moving on to Qantas in 2000 and finally joining this airline in 2013. This flight was initially booked as a 767-200, the shortest and oldest variant of the 767 family, with only a few passenger examples left flying in Russia and Africa. Sadly, this didn't come to pass, but at least we get to fly with this beautiful retro Eastern Airlines livery. Eastern's last 767-200 was sold off in February this year, leaving them with a fleet of just 4 767-300s and 2 777-200s as of this video's release, although they have several of each in storage. Even though the plane is practically empty, the airline still has to fly with a full crew complement, so there's almost one crew member for every passenger. This aircraft is fitted with an all-economy cabin in the 767 standard 232 layout, except for the strange set of 4 recliner seats in the back of the front cabin being sold as business class. Even though I had booked a seat just behind the wing when buying the ticket, everyone was changed to the center of the aircraft for weight and balance purposes, so here is our seat today, 29A. Despite the seat change, it looks like we still have a great view. The seat provided is pretty simple. The legroom looks pretty tight, but it isn't actually that bad as long as you don't use the seat back pocket. It also comes with a full-size tray table, and a control panel in the armrest that doesn't actually do anything. The seat has a pretty good amount of recline and a fully adjustable headrest. Overhead you only have some very old reading lights. This is when I took notice of just how old the overhead bins on this aircraft are. As far as I can tell, this design is the original installed on the aircraft in 1990, which is super cool to see.
Flight attendants prepare doors for departure, cross-track standby for all call. As a final reminder, the area around your feet must remain clear.
Eastern's 2020 relaunch happened just before the world was shut down for COVID, so their network, which was already a bit of a gamble, didn't last long. To survive, the airline pivoted back to charters, primarily providing flights for US troops, as well as joining the rapidly expanding cargo market. Eastern still maintained hope of a third attempt at passenger aviation, however, and to maintain their certificate that allows them to act as an international commercial airline, they have to operate at least one service a month to an international destination, which is why we find ourselves here today on their only round-trip commercial flight, which they only operate once a month. Well, now that we're settled in flight, let's take a quick look at the IFE system. Yes, that's right, IFE. This aircraft does come equipped with a stream-to-device system, probably the newest thing on this plane, although without Wi-Fi. To access it, I had to give them some personal info that they should already have, and watch a quick promotional video. They offer a rather small selection of movies and TV, along with a selection of games and music. An in-flight map was also offered, but that never seemed to load. But hey, who needs entertainment on such a unique flight anyway, especially with these views? Just as we flew over the island of Inagua in the southern Bahamas, a food and beverage service was offered. You can choose a bag of chips from this tray and a soda. I don't mind the limited options though, as I think these Fritos are way underappreciated, and for drinks, ginger ale is all I need while flying. From this point, there really isn't anything to do other than look through the safety card and stare out the window. Sadly, the seatbelt sign was on for most of the flight thanks to these clouds.
Forward cabin secure.
If I wasn't stuck in my seat, I would have loved to check out the bathroom to see if it's as old as the rest of this aircraft. At least I can take the spare time to talk a bit more about this weird airline. So, this flight was filmed in September 2023, and unfortunately for Eastern, they have not had any better luck getting things started since this video was filmed, and have seemingly given up on being a passenger airline. Late last year, there was talk of them starting up again with a JFK to Wuhan route, but that apparently never came to be. November 17th seems to have been Eastern's last commercial flight, with them giving up, fully embracing the cargo and charter life, especially with the US military, which I'm sure pays quite well. But who knows where they might go in the future. Just before this video's release, Eastern had purchased Hillwood Airlines, another small charter operator with a fleet of a few 737s, which they have since rebranded as Eastern Air Express. This gives me a perfect excuse to show off my footage of them that I got in Miami earlier this year. Despite all this, something I find kind of entertaining is that they still maintain their website as if they were a normal passenger airline. You can still type in the Miami to Santo Domingo route, you just won't find any dates. They still even have an Explore With Us section advertising destinations they haven't flown to in years. Even better, they maintain an extremely out-of-date frequently asked questions section, even with COVID stuff. I'll leave the airline's website down below if you want to check that out for yourself. And just like that, this extremely unique flight is coming to an end. If you would like to see the full takeoff and landing, a link to that will be available down below. Otherwise, I'll see you on the ground.
Local time is 5:03 p.m. We will be taxiing for a few minutes, and for your safety and for the safety of those around you, we ask that you remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened and all carry-on luggage properly stowed. Once again, it's been our pleasure serving you today. We do hope you've enjoyed your flight. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for flying Eastern Airlines.
Welcome to Miami International Airport. Here's a good look at an Iberia A330, which we missed in Santo Domingo. I also got a good look at an iAero 737-400. This airline went under in April, and most of their aircraft have ended up with Eastern Air Express. Once we had pulled up to the gate, it took a while for the bridge to move, so I decided to explore the rest of the cabin. After that, I got to talk to a member of the crew for a bit who explained that these weird seats were for airline personnel who travel with the aircraft when flying with US troops. But I'm not sure why he's here now. Flying with Eastern is a pretty cool experience as a fan of aviation, although it's not really fair to review them as an airline, as much as I would love to, since they understandably don't really try that hard. It is kind of sad that the airline ended up ditching its commercial plans though, since even as a full-fledged airline, they would have been pretty unique. And hey, the more airlines the better. In the end though, I'm just glad I got to experience this airline at all, and share it with you. Next up, I'll be taking a Silver Airways ATR, and I hope you'll join me for that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.